Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Immersive Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, and today we are here with Neil Gaur. He is the director of Portal to Ascension, and I'm really happy to be with him today because we've got a lot coming up that I'm honored and blessed to be collaborating with not only Neil, but so many other people on this coming year and further. Neil, how are you doing today?
Doing good, brother, and I'm also feeling blessed to be connected with you. It's only been like 2 months, right? And tuned into your energy and just immediately felt like I needed to reach out. So I'm really happy that it's like the time is everything's picking up, rapidly. And in that short period of time, we've created a lot of collaborations together. So I'm excited for it.
Indeed, I get caught saying it too often, but all boats rise in a high tide, and meet
Hmm
those folks where you just find you dig their energy. I remember, I think the first call I ever had with you a couple of months ago, I was like,
Yep,
oh, it's been like an hour and a half.
I know, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about, connection,
Yeah.
collaboration, and just spreading that light. So yeah, man, Portal to Ascension. That's really awesome. As far as what you guys do, I respect the hell out of you guys. As far as people, anybody who doesn't know what Portal to Ascension is, that's Neil's. Basically, his group where they organize events, cruises, excursions, conferences, festivals, etc. Typically
hmm
within the consciousness and spirituality realm, and those events have been getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the years, and it's really cool to not only see it grow, but even become a part of it. So yeah, it's
Yes.
an honor. So the next thing coming up we've got is that the Ascension Glastonbury. Is that the next event, or do we have anything you're squeezing in there between now and then?
Yeah. So, okay, from now, well, Ascension Glastonbury is in 3 weeks from now. And so nothing up before then. Definitely things coming up in October afterwards, and a little bit of history, if you don't mind, Tyler. I'll just go
Oh,
into
of
why
course.
it came about. So as you shared, we've been creating events. They've been growing. I started in 2008, and from 2008 to 2016, pretty much all live in-person events. Touring, I
Mhm.
took Michael Tellinger on tour 3, 4 times around the U.S. and Canada. James Redfield, the author of Celestine Prophecy, and we're
Oh,
doing all of Stephen Greer's stuff for like 6 years. And I was doing my own events too. Brian Forrester, you might know, and Paula Harris, just individual random events.
yeah. Wow.
And and then a couple of times I'll do like small scale conferences, like in Unity Church in Vancouver. So it was just experimenting, sound healing events, just completely seeing what I could create.
Yeah.
It wasn't really sustaining me or anything like that at that point. And at 2016, I decided like, oh man, this is just like too much. 8 years of this and spending so much money on just traveling and doing all this stuff really wasn't just like paying the bills. I was on survival, hardcore survival. And then in 2016, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna get a regular corporate job. Then I had a thought. Well, why don't I move everything online, and that way I don't have to pay for gas to go anywhere. I don't have to stop Portal to Ascension. And I moved online in 2016. The first event we did was called the Starseed Summit. It was Dolores Cannon's last event she ever did, and it did very well. And to the point that as I was working at this other job, I continued doing these events. And 6 months later, I quit that job. And since 2016, full time now. And we started with one event a month, and then we went up to at one point 100 events a year. And now I would say we're about 60 to 70 events a year. And as you shared, we have like 2 or 3 live conferences a year. San Diego, Glastonbury. In 2026, we're going to move into Sedona as well. And the
Awesome.
intention is every type of production that you could do, I want to do that for consciousness. So music, label, festivals, webinars. 80% of our events are online summits, and they're just like conferences online or workshops. And now, just to bring it full circle here about Glastonbury, when I first got the download in 2008 to do this stuff, do this work, I already knew that when I go back to the place I was born, which is England, I was born in England, it was going to
Okay.
be the end of a karmic cycle. And for so long, I wanted to like expand internationally besides just Canada and doing some events in Mexico to England. And I went there 3 years ago, and someone was
Mhm.
like, I met there from Port of Ascension. She was like, "Why don't you do one in Glastonbury?" I'm like, "I never thought of that." And we did one
That's
event where I thought we'd have 20, 30 people. We had a sold out event, and that was it. That was like, now we have a footing into UK. And this event is beautiful because it's a destination event. It's like
yeah.
it's a conference, but you're going to these mystical lands of Avalon that's connected to the Joseph of Arimathea, the original Christianity before the Roman Empire hijacked
Right.
it, is connected to Mary Magdalene, the priestess energy, the ley lines, the hot chakra center of the world, and it was the last stronghold for the Druids before they were almost entirely wiped out. So it's a glimpse into the ancient past, and just a beautiful metaphysical town. And we have 6 days of experiences, even though within that's 3 days of the conference.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. And yeah, I'm
Hmm.
personally really looking forward to seeing Glastonbury. And I've very much heard the same from everybody who I've
Yeah.
spoken to who's been there. They say it's almost like all the highly evolved souls had just kind of upped and landed in Glastonbury, and it's I've just been told it's a very, very highly evolved,
Hmm.
high conscious, very, very high thought, very accepting place. And of course, the natural geographic, delay lines, grid lines, and
Yeah.
electromagnetic anomalies associated with the area is very interesting. The other
Right.
thing I found interesting was the ties to the Celtic and the Druid carvings. There, let's be honest, we don't really know exactly how old they are, because I found the Stonehenge. Obviously, people know about Stonehenge in England, but recently this summer I went and did some footage at American Stonehenge, and very
Hmm.
much the same thing. Really, really, really old monoliths. This is something that not a lot of people know about, but it was, there was 5 or 6 thousand year old carvings that were of Druid and Celtic origin. And this is in
Huh.
New Hampshire in America, but it's right and astronomically aligned with the Stonehenge in England. And then I was
Mm.
just flabbergasted. Like, how does not everybody know about this? And
Wow.
just stuff like that. And when you're in those places, it's not like it's going to whisk you off naturally into another dimension per se, but let's just say the probability of that happening might be a little high.
Yeah, that's amazing that that connection is there, and that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately as well. Is that it's a lot of these ancient cultures. We already have maybe some evidence and information about the Egyptians visiting the Americas, but this was way more of a globalized planet, and individuals were going around traveling all over
Yeah,
for quite some time, right? There was a one point, not even that long ago, maybe 50 years, within the last 100 years, where they believed that the Native Americans were the first inhabitants of the Americas. And only 10, 15 years ago, they believed they all came in through the Alaskan land bridge, right?
right.
And now
The Bering
there's,
Strait.
yeah, there's genetic evidence now that there was some sort of ship that came to Peru from Mesopotamia thousands of years ago. So people have been coming in all different types of ways. And with the
Yeah,
Druids, it's interesting because I love speaking about the cults and Druids. And in this conference, we have everything at Port Ascension Conference, right? It's a lot of stuff. Mars anomalies, galactic history. But because we're in Glastonbury, we're definitely going to be sticking to that theme as well, having
yeah,
information there. But the Druids and the Druids were the priestly caste. The
right.
Merlins, which is King Arthur's Merlin, was a caste within the Druids, the Merlins. It wasn't like one individual. It was an actual
Like
title for
a
type of
cast
Druid.
within a cast. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It was like a title within the Druid order. Well, just a side note, real quick, the King
Hmm.
Arthur story, the reason why it's been so hard to decipher whether it's real or not is because it's actually a Druidic story, not a Christian story. I don't even think
Right,
King Arthur was Christian. So it goes back even further. They're looking from 300 AD up until now. You know what I'm saying?
right.
It goes way back before that. But
It
the
goes
Druids, they
a lot
and the
deeper.
Celts, there was a bunch of tribes, and a lot of them just acted independently from each other, but they had a common root. And they expand from Anatolia, Turkey, all the way to the British Isles. And in the
Yeah,
British Isles, they had been there a few thousand years before the Romans came. And then when the Romans started kicking out all of the Celts out of Gaul, France area, the Celts then again a few thousand years later went into the British Isles. But who did they meet when they came there? Their ancestors from 2,000 years ago, right? And then
yeah, it's beautiful,
and
isn't it?
then they were there. The Romans came, and where did they go after the Romans came? Well, the last stronghold was the Glastonbury Cornwall area, which is interesting enough, which is why it's the King Arthur story. So when you go there, you get a glimpse into pre-Christian Europe, and
Right,
pretty much when you go throughout Europe, you're going to get Christian history, right? Mad kings, castles, all the stuff. And if you go to Denmark and Sweden, you'll get some Viking history, right?
right.
You got Thor, things like that. But when it comes to like the Celtic awareness is a very rare thing. So you're really
Really?
stepping into this frequency there. And I'll just say as well, the Stonehenge, Maria Wheatley is going to be at our conference, and she's like such a great researcher.
Wow.
She and others are now realizing that Stonehenge is actually even older than the Druids' influence. That the Druids were utilizing it probably at a later date, but it's actually even
Right.
older than that. It's a civilization that we don't even know who they are or what their names are.
Yeah, and that seems to be the case with a lot of the wonders of the ancient world that they were very likely just stumbled upon and repurposed,
Yeah.
refound, rebuilt, etc. But yeah, there's always there's a lot of speculation on the ancient ruins and monuments and such, and if they were found that way by a certain culture, or if they were you know, built by extraterrestrials 500,000 years ago. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
quite the rabbit hole when you get into that. But yeah, it's very very interesting because we seem to, as a society, just really like to zone in on those black and white answers to those questions. Nope,
Yeah.
that happened 4,000 years ago. Period.
Right, and
Truth
when you
is, we
carbon
don't
date,
know.
the only thing you can carbon date is the last piece of organic material in that structure. And so what they do is they find that organic material and they think that's okay, that therefore it's this old. But that doesn't go to say that somebody didn't inherit it afterwards. Just think of a 300-year-old house that's still around, 200-year-old house. So if somebody goes in there now and then they leave a piece of paper and someone goes in that house like now and they're like,
And
"Oh
live
my
in
God, this house is only 10 years old."
a brand new
That's pretty
house.
much what's going on with a lot of these structures. And then we also see some hieroglyphs, like in Egypt, where they say that they created these structures. But if you
Right.
look at some of this stuff, one, some of them actually say they recreated the structures, not created it, right? They rebuilt it. And two, some you're going to say that some like what is it? Some kings or emperors don't try to claim that they created something that maybe they
Of
didn't.
course,
We can't
absolutely.
take the word for it.
Because that was the way to leave your legacy back then. Back in the when what we're told of
Yeah.
history is, if you were a great pharaoh or a great king or a great leader, you left something behind. You started a project long before you thought you were gonna, pass on because you needed that Taj Mahal, you needed that pyramid, you needed that whatever to just show your legacy of how grand you were.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty broad theme, of course. So yeah, it's just natural with bias, of course. Of course, who wouldn't want to take credit for certain things like that? Which
Yeah.
is very interesting. And I think the best way to experience those kinds of places is to just really go to. Which, of course, it's hard for everybody to just say, I'm going to up and go check out ancient ruins, but that really is the best way, to see things for yourself and use that discernment, even more so than just reading and listening to the experts and stuff. But there's something about that feeling you get when you're in those places that
Mm,
are quote unquote magnetically anomalous or whatever it
right,
might
right.
be. There's definitely something in the air, something that
Yeah.
wants
Yeah, like
wants to keep me there.
when it comes to Egypt, for example, like I've been researching it for a while and I knew how magical, mystical, scientific, all this stuff is. But when I went there last year, it was next level. It's just like you're just in awe. It's if you really are open to just like thinking about how they created this stuff and why they did it, then it's just a life-changing experience. Just
Yeah,
knowing that the human ingenuity, like what we were able to create and the purposes for it, the mathematics behind all of it, and some things we can recreate, now some things we can't. But a lot of these things, regardless if we can recreate it or not, these things were done in a time when we were told that we can't do things like this.
yeah. A time when that was not supposed to be a part of history. A time when that was not supposed to be something that humans were doing. It's just like the
Mm-hmm.
Gobekli Tepees and all those have really just blown things out of the water. And I think we're in that
Yep.
little weird in between time where it's we're not talking about that yet, but we are. But it's it's an interesting conversation when mainstream archaeology has to really butt heads with things like Gobekli Tepe and
Yeah, man.
like when they were confronted with the Sphinx back in the the early 20th century, etc. The dating of the Sphinx with the water erosion and such. It takes a long time to
Yep.
look at those things like from the broad perspective.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Ascension Glastonbury, is this how many years have you guys done Ascension Glastonbury, this festival?
So this is only the second year,
Okay.
because last year is when I decided to go out. We were doing Irvine for a few years, then we did San Diego, right? And then I took a break on San Diego this year, so Glastonbury's the only one.
Okay.
Next year there is no event, no live event coming back in 2026 with it. But this is like yeah, the second year. I'm gonna take some breaks every now and then, but the goal is to really take this event all over the world. Like I already have plans for Sedona in 26. I have plans for Sydney, Australia in
Oh, great.
27.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I like doing online events, but the live events just creates a whole different type of energy.
Yes.
It's almost like I'm planning a party. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is. Or like planning a
Yeah,
show or a concert or something
right,
like that.
right.
Yeah, it's
I
creating
like
an
curating
atmosphere.
stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. Curating, absolutely.
Yeah,
Um, and that's just as important as the person who's there channeling or the person who's there lecturing on whatever they're lecturing on. I mean, somebody's got to facilitate, somebody's got to organize. That's inspiring. I mean, everybody has a job to do, a place in the new earth. You don't have to be if you're not a wizard or a magician or anything right at the moment. I mean, you might have some abilities
yep.
you haven't tapped into yet, but there's always place to just put yourself in and serve, walk that path. We
Yep,
all have
yep.
gifts, absolutely.
And that's part of what Portal to Ascension is all about. Is so to get over to overall mission, because like this is an event for sure, and we want some people to get there. But like, what are we doing this for, right? It's well in that area. We kind of create our events like a ceremony now. Like it's a conference, but it's a ceremony, retreat, grid work, and also the heart
Yeah,
chakra frequencies there in the ley lines gives us the opportunity to get to a level of awareness and kind of infuse that do some grid work in that area.
yeah,
So, and part of it is to permeate that frequency throughout the planet. Like this is just one of many events. This is a unique one for sure, where we are contributing towards a collective shift and a collective remembrance, and just coming together in unity so that we can really step into what we really want to create on this planet for ourselves and for everyone else, right?
yeah.
And that's the overall mission of Portal to Ascension. So I see this just
That's
getting bigger and bigger, and we not only learn information, but we celebrate, we meditate, we have transformational experiences. It's like we're doing the deep work and getting those revelations so that we can do the work for ourselves and then go out in the world and live an empowered life, because it's not really about changing the world, it's about changing ourselves. And the more of us that can do that and shift ourselves, the more we can live in the world that we know that's possible.
very, very well said, Neil. And I agree. I don't think it's selfish thinking at all to think of, let's let our light shine. Let's really get to
Hmm.
true self and let's really be the best we can be. It's one of the more selfless things you can do if you're going about it with the right intention.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great if you can turn on your metaphorical light and walk that path and just be the light, be the beacon, be the example, be the exemplar to the best
Hmm.
of your ability. That's the best you can do. That's the best all of us can do.
Yeah.
And it's it feels good. It's innately rewarding. And when you see these things grow and you see these things start to you're going back and forth between online and in person, and it's cool to even have that option, instead of like, well, we got to do it online, we can't get people in person. It's cool
Hmm.
to have the options. I just always try to see the positives and everything like that. So just
Yeah.
absolutely applause to what you guys have done over the past it's been quite some years now, coming up on 20 years. It's pretty crazy. uh well, I guess not. We're 15. We'll
Hmm.
give it we won't age you too much.
Yep.
Neil, so what? Take me back a little bit before 2008, which was also obviously a pretty interesting time. That's kind of if you didn't wake up during the lockdowns, I bet a lot of people had a big shift in beliefs during that '08 time. What
Yeah,
were you
dude.
doing?
Lots of
What were you
people.
doing
Lots of
beforehand?
people. Okay. So, yes. So 2008 is interesting because I know lots of people that was their awakening, and that was also when the recession started, the market crashed, right? So before 2008, well, as a child, I was raised Hindu. I'm Indian, raised Hindu, lived in England, moved when I was 12 to the US, to California. And I did all the Hindu practices and stuff, but I wasn't like so religious. I just did what I was told.
Yeah.
And, but because I was raised Hindu, I was never told it was the only way. And so I knew about Jesus. We celebrate Christmas every year. I never thought he didn't exist. I knew about Moses. And I started wondering towards 2000, 2001, when I was 17, 18, what is the root of all religion, right? Because I started looking into that and I started seeing similarities between Krishna and Christ, Krishna and Christ. And so I started looking and seeing, well, is there a root of everything? Is there somewhere that everything came from one religion and it stemmed out into all this?
Yeah.
Let me do some research. So as I began researching, I would be with the Quran, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita. I would highlight similarities, and then I finally stumbled upon the Sumerian Tablets of Creation and Jordan Maxwell's work, the Sons of God series that he did.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah,
of course, we have within
love
that,
Jordan Maxwell. He's great.
dude, he was my first, bro. He was the one that first got me into all this. So it was like Jordan Maxwell, Anunnaki, Sons of God, Fallen Angels. I'm like, wait a second, is this where the Old Testament came from? Did I find a root of the Old Testament? And I started reading more, and yeah, definitely. Like, if for example,
100%.
um, we were created in the image of God. Well, it comes from we were created in the image of the Elohim. And then you also stumble onto the fact that that was plural. There is no singular God. So mind blown in one moment that monotheism isn't even from monotheism. Okay, it's actually polytheistic. And then even in the Ten Commandments, you will choose no other powerful one but me.
Right.
What are you talking about, Yahweh? There's no other powerful one but you. When there were other powerful ones and you're one of them. It's right there, right?
You're one of the powerful ones, and we're supposed to choose. We're going to vote for you.
No, right? Exactly, dude. And I've done a lot of stuff with Paul Wallace, and he goes deep into that. And then you're looking at the fact that there is like a Garden of Eden, talking about Babylon, and then all of a sudden I stumble onto. So this was my next revelation, was the Epic of Gilgamesh, and this guy is a hybrid, half human, half something being cruising the planet. And when he gets to somewhere, he comes across this island where he meets Uptapishtim. And who is that? AKA Noah. This is another account of the Noah story from a third party perspective that ran into him. And the Noah tells him about a great flood and how everybody will drown in this flood and how him and his family are the sole survivors. Okay, so first now we got the original story of Noah, and it comes from this like story talking about ETs and plural gods. And then secondly, isn't the story of Noah in the Old Testament that all of the planet was wiped out and he was the last ones left? How the heck did Gilgamesh have a whole civilization on Earth and run into Noah? And then you get into there were two separate Homo species.
Right.
Noah was like Homo sapien or something, and these were some giant, hybridization.
Yes, I've always thought that. Like, I've heard the joke, like, well, if Noah was, whatever, a certain ethnicity or race or whatever, like, then where did all the African Americans come from? Where do the Indian people come from? It's like, I've always thought of it like, nah, that story's, it's a story. I mean, I try not to go too far down the literal meaning of stories, meant to be metaphorical and have some truth to them as well. But I've always thought that way. Like, no, the figure of Noah is different. I don't think he's a man. That's just something I've always kind of considered.
Right, and I don't know what he was, what species he was, but Gilgamesh and him, it says pretty clearly that they were not the same race of beings. And then when it comes to the races on Earth, the ethnic races, I would say that that's like maybe the different extraterrestrial infusions with different beings, with a native being on Earth.
I mean, we really do have a ton of genetic variation amongst us. It's both what I just said and not. I mean, we're very, very, very similar. We're 99.9999 whatever sharing DNA, but that 0.0001 makes a huge difference. Just, you walk around, you meet people in everyday life. Obviously, we don't all look and talk and act and move the exact same. That little bit of DNA change makes a big difference. And just expound upon that with like a couple percentage points rather than a couple hundredths of a percentage point, and then throw in a pope who had kind of put the hush hush on a few books that were supposed to go in the Bible, and rediscover them, and all of a sudden you got a little bit of a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, so much manipulation. So I was getting into histories written and rewritten by the victors. That was something I got into quite quickly because I was seeing Well, wait a second. Not only does it say the Elohim, but it says basically these beings from the stars, and it tells you what planet they're from, and it tells you where the planet's located in a map where called Nibiru. You
Right.
probably know. So either all religion, especially the Abrahamic religions, because they're pretty much where this is the source text of that, is all BS because it's actually a sci-fi story from some ancient people, or maybe there's some credibility to these beings actually coming from other planets, and the
Yeah.
gods, the apparitions, the angels are actually beings that we've witnessed and visited us. Then I have to put my logical cap on, like, well, not to say that angels, angelic realms, God, source doesn't exist, because I didn't really know, and I have my own beliefs now about all that. But it, but my logical mind would say that there's definitely more of a chance that something like us exists throughout the vast cosmos, another planet, beings on it, right? And therefore, and when they come down here with advanced technology and able to do things, when we're primitive, we see it from certain perspective.
Right.
Look at the keys of Enoch, right? The Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch speaks about a bright wheeled chariot, right? Like a round chariot. And Enoch goes onto this chariot and he's in shock. The whole description is like him literally like, what the heck is this? But if you look at it, it's pretty much talking about being on a spaceship. And then
Yeah,
all of a
it's a
sudden,
rocket ship.
yeah, the beings take him around all over the planet in like moments and seconds, and he's describing it in the Book of Enoch of
Yeah.
how they traveled and what they saw and how he saw Earth from the skies. Right. Another
Yeah,
great example is
in the
Moses. No, go ahead, Tyler.
oh yeah, I was going to say we just tap it on right on there with you. There's a few examples like that in ancient texts, and it seems to be a lot of them in Hindu. I mean, isn't there in
Yeah, 100% in Hindu text
the
too.
Vimanas in the
Yeah,
what is it, the in the Vedic texts where you have the Vimanas, which very much seem to be flying machines for lack of a better
yeah,
word.
right.
And then you were going into Moses there. Sorry to cut you off, but
Well,
yeah, that's
in the Indian text, there's actually an image of the Vimanas in one of the texts, and it shows you how it works. And they have propellers on there. There's this like steam propulsion thing. It's literally a flying machine, and the ancient texts actually have a description of it and show it. And
like a
now with Moses, when Moses went up Mount Sinai, and then when he was about to leave Yahweh, Yahweh basically said to him, summarizing here, that you need to stay clear before I return to the heavens. If you stay in this area, when we leave and basically blast off, you're going to die. You need to go all the way over there and hide behind that rock to stay clear of when we take off. Otherwise, you will die. Hey, that sounds like a rocket taking
that
off to me.
sounds yeah, that sounds like a shuttle launch.
Yeah, exactly.
And I live in Florida. Like I've been to the growing up. When they launch shuttles and stuff at Cape Canaveral, I've went close, but they only let you get within like 5 or 10 miles, like which is close. So
Yeah,
you're 5 miles away from a rocket launch. It's still very loud. It's very impressive. It's very light. And I live in Tampa, it's across the state. But when they launch one, you can see it from here. It's
wow,
like
yeah,
it's pretty. It's a lot of energy going on with, and
yeah,
that's just what we are doing with, quote unquote NASA and SpaceX and things like that. So yeah, to imagine something that's actually working with the 0 point or anti-gravitics, etc.,
right, right, right.
interstellar travel, things like that. I can only
Yeah.
imagine the
The
implications.
deeper
Or
the deeper layer of all this was like, okay, so we have that story of Yahweh, we have the story of the Elohim, and the Elohim was a group of beings, and Yahweh was one of them. And some of them were benevolent, some of them weren't. But then if you look at the stories of Yahweh, he's a really mean guy. He did some
yeah,
huge atrocities, and a good example is, and this is from Paul Wallace's book, Scars of Eden. So King David at one point, King David, they'd been fighting battles in the Promised Land much after Moses passed and Moses
mm,
had died. They've been fighting battles to slowly take over the Promised Land. So one day King David decides, hey, I'm going to go ahead and count my army just because from now on, instead of just going in, blazing, we're going to I'm going to do this a little more strategically, and we're going to count the army and how many people in the army, and make sure that we only fight battles we think we can win. Okay.
yeah. Art of
So
War.
Yahweh hears about this, right? Yahweh finds out, and Yahweh goes to King David and goes, "Oh hell no!" Basically, how dare you count your army? You don't choose when you go to war. I choose when you go to war.
Right. It's
And what he
tempting
did
the
was,
Lord.
I forget the number, but he massacred and murdered tens of thousands of his own army just to prove a point to King David.
Right. And yeah, that's
That's in the
that
Old
whole.
Testament.
And I grew up, you grew up, Hindu. I grew up, a Christian, a little, my parents weren't like diehard Catholics. We didn't go to church every weekend or anything like that. But,
Yeah,
that was just like the general upbringing. And that's very much what I remember about, the Old Testament was, and then, as a Christian growing up, I remember that being a lot of the teaching. There seemed to be a heavy emphasis on the Old Testament. And to
mm,
me, and this isn't like the most original thought ever, but the Old Testament, Yahweh is very angry.
yeah. So when
he
they
does,
say
he's
a
got a
healthy
temper.
fear of God, you know how people say it's good to have a healthy fear of God, right?
Right.
It's because of all this stuff, man, of all these stories. And when people do these atrocities in the name of God, well, if you look at the Old Testament and the atrocities God did, it's almost like giving you validation to do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. 100%. It makes me think, of course, well, popes were actively taking books out that had truths in them, actively adding things to books. The Bible's not one book, there's plenty of books in there. Like, just how much of this was really like, and how sophisticated was the planning and the quote unquote
Yeah.
on purpose, etc.
Hmm.
It's really hard to calculate, but that's just me. I'm naturally skeptical and using discernment just about on everything. But yeah, for something like the Bible, when you grow up and you just think like, yeah, that's the Bible. You swear on it in court, and I mean, we even have a term, the word, no, that's our Bible. I mean, even if it's not the Bible, we use that term to describe something that's extremely
Hmm.
important to us, and it's the rules. So it's obviously seeped into our verbiage, even just not as Christians, like, oh,
Yes.
that's my Bible. That's a
It's the
permeation beyond
foundation. It's the
Christianity.
first book. It's the first book of what it came from. And which is interesting because the New Testament isn't fire and brimstone as much,
So
as
different.
the Old Testament. And so what I believe, what Paul Walls believes, and a lot of other people, is that the New Testament was a new covenant and wasn't supposed to be the old covenant. It was a correction, okay, and that it shouldn't have informed the New Testament. The New Testament was a whole separate way, a saving from Yahweh. So Yeshua, the word Yeshua has been translated as Yahweh's salvation. Okay,
Okay.
but Paul Wallace goes back into root meanings, and he says, well, actually, it's so similar that it could actually translate to salvation from Yahweh.
Save me
You
from
know what I'm saying?
myself.
Yeah,
Save him from himself. Yeah.
right.
That one's kind of deep, actually.
Yeah, it's
Because
like
the
the, the
exemplar
powerful ones were
Christ.
not God. The powerful ones were not source. They
No,
were
of
they
course,
were
they were the
beings that came down
exemplar.
here and exerted control. Some of them were seemed to have good intentions. One of them was called Ashara, and in 700 BCE, she was a part of the Judaism pantheon because Judaism had the pantheon. Her name was Asherah, and they removed her in 700 BCE, and over hundreds of years, they struck down and took down all of her temples and her idols. And if you look into the ancient Hebrew texts, where was she from? She was from the Pleiades, a powerful one, a benevolent, powerful being that was feminine energy from the Pleiades that was here to
Right.
support. And then they took her out, and all the benevolent stories that she had, they gave to Yahweh. They just wrote his name instead of
Right.
hers.
Yeah, of course. It kind of goes along with like that classic photo we see of Jesus Christ. It's I forget the gentleman's name, but he's got a name. It was a friend of the Pope's, the painter at the time. It just happened to be the guy who got lucky to paint himself as Jesus Christ that we know and love today.
Yeah,
And it was very much on purpose to, that was the social media of the day. That was the marketing. That was the tabloids. You made a
right.
painting, and well, here we are, 2,000 years later, and it's stuck.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how many people don't know that that's like, oh, that's a real individual that photo, that statue, that's made off of. That's not just like random. That's like based off a real gentleman.
Yeah, exactly.
And not that he was a bad guy. I don't really know much about him, but it wasn't. I don't
But it
think it
was a
was too
manipulation from the truth.
exactly.
You
That's
know,
all.
we want truth, and that's what we're doing here at Portal to Ascension. We're basically just exploring in a non-attached way, to be quite honest, the curiosity of what we really are.
Yeah, that's
You know, and there's a lot of
the
manipulations that
sauce.
can be proven, and there's a lot of manipulations that happen that we just have no evidence for because it was done so well. And
That's that's a really good point. Just done so
yeah,
well.
well, dude, completely
Because
wiped
yeah,
from
you got to
history.
think. It's like us versus them. Of course, people think that there's a lot more of us than there is of them. Like, oh, they want to keep us down. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
But I tend to
yeah,
think of it a little bit further. Like, of course, yeah, I do believe in a metaphorical they who might be like the
hmm,
ruling elite, or those maybe are. But I tend to go towards like those who might be working with other species, or those who might be exchanging technology or secrets or whatever. No, of course, that sounds crazy at the dinner table, but I mean, it's an idea that I must entertain.
yeah,
Is the stuff that's really being pulled at, the strings being really pulled at the top, does that have something to do with the extraterrestrial community out there that is
yeah,
very much becoming something that a lot of people are starting to place real credence in, not just fringe science, but it's starting to become something that's a part of the zeitgeist, which is, when that happens, it's undeniable, even if there isn't like factual numbers yet, or like cold hard data. Just the permeation of that stuff into our everyday life is
hmm,
so obvious. It's here. It's like time to talk about.
yeah, man. There's a whole reality going on behind the scenes that even people who are like us that are curious about it, exploring it, can't even scratch the surface of how intentional this thing could really be. And we're getting now with David Grush's story, congressional disclosure. Some things are
Yeah,
leaking out, and some of the things leaking out is that it seems that a lot of governments have been in contact with ET races for quite some time. Many of them know about their connection to Earth, their ancestry. Some of them have agreements with them. Some of these beings have agendas and intentions. Some political figures, or even beyond that, have come up with agreements and basically contracts allowing them to do specific things on Earth. And this is all happening behind closed doors, but it's not like happening in another dimension, even though that has happening as well. A lot of this stuff is happening here on this third dimensional reality.
literally behind a closed door.
Yeah, literally behind a closed door.
And it'll get leaked into like a little conspiracy reel or something. But that's kind of, a lot of
Yeah,
times, that suffices as like the the karmic retribution, the giving the opportunity for people to take and give consent. And
yeah, man.
I mean, that stuff's it's just so hard. There's just it's a bombardment. There's something coming at you from every angle. So there's
Yeah. That's
God
probably why
bless the
there's so many distractions in the world, right? Like, just keep them distracted, keep them in anxiety and fear,
hundred
and
percent.
jumping from the next thing to the next thing, needing stimuli, not being able to chill out. All this stuff, just like we can watch 10 Instagram reels of the fact of this conspiracy still happening, and then we'll just get to business as usual, you know?
Yeah, and it's not gonna. It might not change might not change our life. It might not change our habits. It might not change the way we conduct
Because
ourselves.
we're overstimulated with all this stuff, dude.
Just
There's
because
too
it's
much.
so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, and with that being said, that's why we're doing this work as well, just to move closer. Because no matter what, this stuff is coming out and leaking out, and
Yes.
some of the intentions, agendas are insane. Like, for example, I watched a TED Talk. I forget the guy's name now, and this guy was a part of like some three-letter agency program, and he said he was talking about MK Ultra on this talk, right? And he said on this talk that they would, after they figured out how to hook up certain electric things to the brain, and then they would press the button, it would create an electrical whatever, and it would help be able to manipulate and put thought patterns into the brain, right? So that was, this is how MK Ultra started, and then they started wondering, can we do this wirelessly? Okay, and then they found out they could, And guess what the invention was from the CIA MK Ultra? Blue light.
Wow.
Blue light was an invention from MK Ultra on how to make the brain susceptible to thought patterns and be controlled.
And be control, influence thought patterns, because
Dude,
you can
think of how
influence
intentional that
them.
is, bro. It's on our phones. It was put there
Very intentional.
on our
Yeah,
computers.
absolutely. That's insane. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And yeah, the more you hear about programs like MK Ultra and things like that over the years, I remember just even in the '90s, the stuff you heard about, but if you talked about it as fact, it wasn't. Hey, it is a little fringe, but now, I mean, we've got CIA declassified documents, we've got whistleblowers, we've got, and not just whistleblowers who seem to be shills, and of course some might be, but
yeah,
it just seems that there's enough like with the Disclosure Project, with their first conference in 2001 versus the conference they had, what, 2 or 3 years ago, the 20-year anniversary one. The
yeah.
amount of whistleblowers and people and information that have come out of those things, and I'm not like absolutely taking the side of Dr. Stephen Greer here. I mean, I don't know the man, but I respect his work and I respect what
Yeah,
he's doing. And just, I mean, that's just an example of growth that, like, something like that got almost no press back then and was, a small group of individuals, very fringe, now becoming something. I mean, when that press conference came out, and before that was that film Unacknowledged, and that really went
hmm,
crazy viral. I mean, I remember
right.
everybody talking about that movie. And that was, that was cool to me, just because everybody was talking about unacknowledged special access projects,
Yeah,
and I'm like, all right, heart's in the right place. Let's talk. That's my thing,
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
And it doesn't have to be anything specific. There's so many patterns to go down, and or paths to go down, and it's kind of that
So much
divide
that's
and
happening.
conquer thing. But I think we
Right,
got to
right.
remember our hearts are all generally in the same place if we're searching
Yeah,
down what NASA lied to us about, or what big pharma, what's the banking. That's all coming from the same place, and then
yeah.
ultimately, I think it's you end up deciding that you need to seek inward, you need to seek self. That's the actual answer.
Right. I mean, even when the even there's like so much of this stuff is out there, just like you shared, like the documents, the whistleblowers, but even the patents that the U.S. Navy have. There, we did a whole thing with Michael Sala where he went over these U.S. Navy patents. Like these, you can look up yourself, and these patents are next level technology that's reverse engineered from craft.
Oh yeah,
Some of them are
absolutely.
very old patents, right? So it's like it's almost like that whole thing of they need to tell us what they're doing, put it in plain sight, you know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's right there on the CIA.gov/reading room. Everybody click that
yeah,
CIA.gov/reading room. I'll put in the bio. I spend a lot of time in there. And I
yep,
swear they put some crazy stuff out that they don't announce on the news that they've declassified this document. It just happens. And all of a sudden it's
yeah,
available if you search for it. And it's like literal jaw dropper, like a freaking cartoon sometimes, what you can find on there.
yep,
But it's not on the news, so people don't believe you. Yeah, it's just that fun little game we play. But
exactly, man, exactly.
absolutely. Yeah, it's awesome though. I'm really excited for the stuff that's coming up as far as the mixture of online events and in person events, because they
Yes,
both have their value. The in person events, obviously, we get to all mix energies in person. I really see the value of wow, like toroidal fields are freaking here. They're close. There's like magnetic, intentional, cohesive energy here. The in person gatherings are great. But with the online stuff too, like the Awakening of Humanity, that's coming up
yeah,
soon. Able to have 11 hosts, 77 speakers, keep it
hmm,
running for X amount of days, so many hours,
yeah,
etc. Afterwards, that gives a whole nother set of strengths to the event, to the
straight up,
gathering,
yeah,
and stuff. So it's
right,
really cool to do both like that, the way that you do.
exactly. And to speak about that one, so we'll speak about the Awakening conference, and we'll speak about the cruise. 11 days of first everybody out there. 11 days of awakening.com or portalsascension.org. Upcoming events, check it out there. So this year's our 16th year anniversary. So in honor of that, we're doing an 11-day free or by donation event. And as Tyler shared, 77 speakers. We have 11 MCs, and we're just going to be going straight for 11 days, October 8th to 18th, 67 hours a day. Some of the most amazing people. Not only a lot of people I worked with over the last 16 years, but then many new people as well. And
Yeah.
the slogan for this is infusing the timeline of consciousness. And it's really designed for just like us to just create a lot of awareness in this period of time and just permeate it throughout the cosmos and throughout Earth. And this information and awareness that we're going to do in those 11 days, which could ultimately be the largest streaming conscious event ever. I don't know. I haven't seen anything else, but it's really just for us to keep this content in circulation.
Yeah.
And with 77 speakers, we're going to hit so many topics. The amount of different angles of consciousness all in one place in those 11 days is incredible. So, again, free or by donation, 11daysofawakening.com. I'm really, really excited for that one.
And we'll put that in the bio as well. 11 Days of Awakening, and it's going to be awesome. And things like that. It's especially some of the all of the speakers, everybody who's involved is really got something unique to bring to the table. There are
Yeah.
also some really big names who've been doing big things for a long time.
Yeah.
Rising stars who we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
kind of come up and start really making some ripples and some waves in the past couple of years. It's a really good mixture of ideas. It's
Yes.
completely all encompassing. I would imagine. We haven't experienced it yet, but like to have that many viewpoints and to have that level of back and forth and a little bit of interaction and feedback from those who are just attending and watching and stuff and such. That's really gonna open up the consciousness, create a cohesiveness that's it could be unmatched, and especially with the guided meditations and things like that, when people are doing things in unison. I mean, to me, that
Mm-hmm.
always raises the frequency, that raises the consciousness. It's just a nod to Mama Gaia. It's all positive. So,
Exactly.
absolutely, really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, honored to be involved too, and
Honored to have you, man.
that
And
you
then you're
need
going to be on the
passion.
cruise. So should we get into that one?
Yeah, let's talk about the cruise. It's Galactic Origins Cruise, which, by the way, that's an awesome
Yep.
name.
I know, right? So, it's been a year now since I decided to do the cruise, and the reason why I call it Galactic Origins is because last year, as you know, there's a lot of congressional hearing information, UFO stuff coming out, and the questions that they're being asking is just so elementary, if you will. And some of
Yeah,
these questions are like, why are they showing up at nuclear bases, right? And or where do they come from? Or oh, they're not extraterrestrial. They're from Earth. They've been here forever, right? Just blanket statement, all
right.
these things, and then
Interdimensional, whatever. Yeah,
right,
just
and then the constant question of, are you sure it's not China or Russia? Like, come on, man. Like,
the weather
and
balloon theory.
in the same vein, saying that, oh, we have evidence that these have been coming from for hundreds of years, if not longer. Okay,
Well, then
do you think China could have done this in the 40s, for 30s? They weren't even communist China at that point. The Foo Fighters,
hundred
all this stuff.
percent.
The question is so elementary. We need to move the conversation to, who are these beings? Where do they come from? What are the messages? What is our connection to them? What's going on in the cosmos, and what's our role within it? Right.
Hell yeah,
So
and that's what's going to give us. That's what's going to push us closer to a level one society, to a society that could participate in a grander galactic society. I mean, if we're not at
yeah,
that point yet, that we're never. That's kind of the next big finish crossing point. If I think.
exactly, man. Exactly. So even though like we're gonna have all types of things, we're gonna have music, we're gonna have dance, we're gonna have breath work, we're gonna have excursion to ancient sites, we're gonna have ancient history information, but there's a lot of galactic awareness coming through here as well. And so it's a bunch of different things, but that is the general theme, and it's on the Celebrity Equinox. It's galacticoriginscruise.com. It's a huge cruise ship, like a city at sea, right? So we're gonna go
Yeah,
to Honduras, Belize, two places in Mexico, Costa Maya, Tulum archaeological site. Got to really experience all of that,
so fun.
and all while we're having presentations, awareness in the luxury of this beautiful cruise line. It's actually a luxury cruise liner, so it's really
Yeah,
beautiful and
it's a
comfortable.
really nice boat. I checked it out on the
Yeah,
internet and stuff.
yeah,
It's
man.
a
And we
it's a
get to
nice
hang
ship.
out together and chill. We get to
Yeah.
like have a vacation, a conference, an adventure all at once.
I'm looking so forward to that because it's South America in December, so it's beautiful. I mean, the weather's
Yep.
is beautiful, and to have
Exactly. Exactly.
all of those things at once, to have just a kind of a vacation where, because the thing is, there'll be people on this boat that are just there to go on a cruise.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
But that's okay. It's just people that are relaxing. It kind of contributes to the energy. But
That's what's
to
be
be
so
able to,
fun. Like, just imagine, you have an after party at a conference. There's like 10 after parties just happening on the cruise ship anyway. A
because
jazz
there's
bar,
gonna be four
all types of
thousand
things
people
happen.
there anyway. Like the boat's full. Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
be really cool. I'm sure a lot of people that are going, independent of galactic origins, are still interested in, or else they wouldn't be going on such a cruise where,
Yeah.
they're probably interested in the Mayan aspect of things, or at least a
Yes.
little
Yes. Yes.
bit. So it's really a cool spot to be where just, you said it, you hit the nail right in the head with the, a little bit of vacation, a little bit of conferencing and networking, and then just like,
Yeah.
just really just having fun and diving into like, I mean, I don't know about you, I do know, I gather, but just what I'm freaking passionate about, what I am so passionate about, like it's just amazing. It's a great opportunity, and of course
Yeah.
to get to see those different places. I mean, that's one thing I would always advise people is to, I don't advise people to take out big credit cards and loans and go into Hawk so you can go see a Mayan resort or ruin. I mean, but if you have the choice of sitting comfy and cushy at home, or you have the choice and the opportunity, and the universe has put a situation in your life where it's pushing you to travel a little bit, give it a shot.
Yep.
It's always
Exactly.
worked out for me. You see a lot more when you get out of your own culture that you're living in every day. Absolutely, I think it's very
Yeah.
powerful.
So it's gonna be really fun and informative and expansive. So if anybody's interested in joining us, galacticorigins.cruise.com, and it's time really like it's time for us to really. There's no holding back at this point. I'm saying?
It's time
Like,
to sell some. It's time to buy some tickets, guys. If you want to come on
yeah,
a
that
cruise,
too.
we're leaving from Port Canaveral, right, Florida.
Port Canaveral, Florida.
Yeah, and that'll be what I think it's December 11th. Am I correct me if I'm
14th.
14th to the 21st. So that week before Christmas, you'll be back before Christmas. But
Perfect
y'all
timing.
know I'm a Floridian, so any of you out there who are, my fellow Floridians, cruise right out of Fort Cape Canaveral.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it'll be quick,
honestly,
easy for you.
the pricing and everything based on what a cruise costs for a whole week, as far as lodging and food and all that stuff is included, the stops, the port fees,
Yeah.
the in the activity. I was able to see what people have the option of doing if they're not going on like the excursions and things like
Yeah.
that. These
So
places
much.
are still absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Exactly.
A cruise is unless of course you're afraid of going on a cruise ship, but it's really one of those situations where you can get a heck of an experience and for a fairly good value. Let's just
Yeah.
say that.
Right. Right. So hope to see some of you guys there. GalacticOriginsCruise.com. It's going to be beautiful. Tyler will be there as press. He'll be going around doing interviews, connecting with people. We're curating a magical experience. So hope to see some of you guys.
Absolutely. Look for the big eyeball. We'll put you on camera. Yeah, absolutely. And Neil, it's awesome. I know we got started a little late today due to some scheduling stuff, so I really appreciate your patience and everything like that. But I think it'd be cool for us to, if you want, we can certainly hop on some live streams here and there,
Yeah.
leading
Let's
up
do it.
to some of these conferences. Obviously, we'll be working together during the Awakening of Humanity, so that will be
Hmm.
cool. I'm sure we'll be touching base regularly on that. But yeah, if you'd like to say, if you feel like hopping on live stream or something just to do some promo or whatever for one of the events, cool topic comes in your mind or one comes into mind, I'm always happy to spitball those ideas and just kind of mix magic
Hmm.
and, you know, spread the light, spread the energy.
I love that, brother. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
I remember you saying you had about an hour or so, so I don't want to keep you too long. And I also know that we'll probably talk again soon, being that we've got these events coming up, which is great. And I
Yeah.
usually do this at the beginning of the episode, but I'll take a minute here to shout out our affiliate sponsors, of course, Galactic Federation of Light Clothing. This is the Blue Lotus shirt. That's what they call it. They are very responsible in the way that they source their clothing. They pay very close attention to the frequencies and such at which their fabrics are, resonating at. Wool versus linen versus cotton percentage, etc. They even have a physicist looking into like photonically charging their each garment before it's shipped out, just as kind of a good intention. Tagline is clothing for light workers, and they are Dotan and Tavel, bless you guys. They are an early episode of the Immersive. They left the high fashion business, classic Hollywood a long time ago, and decided to do something that they were a little bit more passionate about, and it's manifested into something pretty awesome. I'm really happy to be aligned with them. And I was just looking for my GFL hat. But if you use the code Tyler33 on their website, you get a free hat. Honestly, extremely comfortable clothing, and you feel good wearing it. Another one, Unified TV. Keep that one short. Free trial. Link in the bio. If you use the year subscription, it's a discount. You get free access to all the live events. Of course, Gaia TV, I cannot say thank you enough. It's very new that we have started to become affiliated, but I can't wait to see what we can do together soon. So thank you so much, folks at Gaia TV. Thank you again. Neil, would you like to sign off with anything? Let anybody, anywhere people can find you if they have any specific questions?
Yeah.
What's the best way to reach out to you?
Sure. The best way to find me is portal2ascension.org, portal2ascension.org. Sign up there. You get a username and password. You get access to thousands of hours of free presentations. So it's a good tool and resource. You'll get all of our updates for events, everything. And then a YouTube channel. We got something going on every single day. YouTube is just nonstop. So much awareness. If you enter any of these topics or a lot of these topics, you'll just see how every day is just so unique. So check it out there. And I'll just leave it with this, that as I was sharing a little earlier, there's no holding back. The industry right now, the industries of the world, a lot of them are fueling an outdated system and literally have no purpose for existence except for us spinning our wheels and generating income so that people can have a roof over their head. It's just like made up fabrications that don't contribute to anything that we really need or anything that the planet needs or the upliftment from consciousness. As we awaken, that there are new industries that are going to be taking over the planet. So when I say no holding back, it's like, what is your dream? What is your purpose? Start investing more time into that. And I'm not going to say just quit your job, because I did that many times and I fell flat on my face.
Yeah,
I'm just saying move
I've done that too, but it's not for the faint of heart.
Right. Just be open and energize that new paradigm where we don't just spin our wheels in this world where we're not contributing to our well-being, each other's well-being, the planet's well-being, and just abusing, taking, and that's the world that we're moving into. So I'm happy for that, and I'm ready. Even though we're moving to that world, I'm personally working on enjoying the journey rather than waiting for the destination.
Very much, very, very well said, Neil. And I think that's why we get along. And yeah, I think right along the same lines. I try not to get caught up in too much of the second to second stuff, because there's always something that can grab you and kind of mess with that at least part human brain that we have. But I call it the trust fall. I say I'm on the trust fall. This is something I say a lot, but it's I really try to stay vigilant on that. If I feel myself taking back a little bit of the control, 5%, 10%, that I'm not supposed to control, then I don't feel good. I gotta stay on the trust fall. I trust that I'm gonna keep walking, and that pathway, that metaphorical doorway to the quote unquote new earth, is just going to reveal itself. It's going to open, and the only way that's going to happen is if we take a bit of a leap of faith. We take a little bit of a little bit of faith in each other, a little bit of gratitude in each other, a little bit more reaching out a hand, to both ask for help and offer help. Just new earth paradigms on everything. There's, like you said it so well, there's just a lot of broken, even in the general 3D concept of things, so many broken systems. And well, they're not broken completely, just full, obviously they could use some fixing. It's an exciting time to be alive. I hope to be around for another half a century so I can see what the heck we can all accomplish. Or who the heck knows? Maybe I'll be here to fight World War IV with sticks and stones. But it's not in my control. I think that
Yeah,
was well said. I think it's in our control, though. I mean, there's manifestation and the law of attraction, but I really choose to. I really do believe that the collective manifestation is something that's much more powerful,
yeah, man.
and that's where we can move mountains
I love
as a
that.
collective.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, all right, guys. Well, don't want to cut you short, Neil. I just, we hopped on a little bit late. I think it'd be great to hop on a live stream and maybe touch base in another forum, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or something like that, just to maybe a
Yeah,
little bit
let's
of
do it.
updates on these events as we get a little bit closer. And
Exactly.
otherwise, my friend, it's an honor and a pleasure for you to take some time out of your day to speak with me. And I respect the hell out of you, man, for what you've been
Thanks,
doing
man.
for the past 15 years or so. It's great. We're all doing our part, but just
Yeah, yeah.
salute to you for having been doing
Thanks,
it for so
brother.
long and to so much avail. Absolutely.
Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate you, brother.
Very much so. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, that's another episode of the Immersive Podcast. Sometimes they're 2.5 hours, sometimes they're an hour. We're all over the place. But that's the beauty of not being pigeonholed. We can kind of do what we've got to do. If Neil Gaur wants to see us again, he certainly is welcome. We love repeat guests, and yes, we say that a lot, but usually those repeat guests come on the form of an Instagram live stream. So stay tuned. Instagram, stay tuned to my producer, Jane. Shout out to her. She does so much behind the scenes. She is incredible. We're all in this together on Instagram as her profile. So, you see me on camera, but she's doing quite a bit behind the scenes. Thank you to all the past guests. Thank you to the audience. If you click that subscribe button, you click that like button, you click that share button, thank you so much. We're a new show and it really helps. So, yeah, everybody have a great day. And thank you again, Neil Gaur, one last time. And
Thank you, everybody.
we'll be seeing big things from you soon. And yeah, hopefully, maybe we'll be doing some big things together.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right, my friend. Well, sounds good. And
Cool.
we shall talk soon.